The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Victoria Sterling's penthouse as she stood frozen in her marble foyer, designer heels clicking against the cold stone. Her hands trembled not from the October chill seeping through the glass, but from what she'd just witnessed. After 38 years of building an empire worth billions, after clawing her way from a trailer park in Ohio to the top of Manhattan's skyline, she thought she'd seen everything. She was wrong. Victoria had returned from her business trip to Tokyo a day early, exhaustion weighing heavily on her shoulders. The merger with Sora Industries had fallen through at the last minute, costing her company nearly $50 million. Her assistant didn't know she was back. Her security team was off duty, and she'd used her private elevator to avoid the usual fanfare that accompanied her arrivals. All she wanted was silence, a glass of wine, and maybe a hot bath to wash away another failed deal. But as the elevator doors opened to her penthouse, she heard something unexpected: laughter. Not just any laughter or the pure, uninhibited giggles of children echoing through her usually silent home. She moved cautiously through her living room, past the Monet hanging above her Italian leather sofa, toward the sounds coming from her kitchen. What she saw next would haunt her in the most beautiful way possible. Miguel Santos, her night janitor for the past 3 years, was standing at her granite island with 4 young children gathered around him. The oldest couldn't have been more than 10, the youngest barely 5. They were all wearing clothes that had seen better days: patched jeans, worn sneakers with holes, and thin jackets that wouldn't keep out the autumn cold. But their faces were bright with joy as Miguel carefully divided a single peanut butter and jelly sandwich into 4 equal pieces. "There you go, mijos," he said softly in his gentle, accented English. "One for each of you." And look, he reached into his worn duffel bag and pulled out 4 small juice boxes, the kind that cost $1 each at the corner store. "Apple juice tonight. Your favorite, Rosa." The little girl with pigtails clapped her hands together. "Thank you, Papa Miguel." Victoria's breath caught in her throat. "Papa Miguel?" She pressed herself against the wall, staying hidden, watching as this man she'd barely acknowledged beyond a polite nod transformed before her eyes. Miguel wasn't just feeding the child Rena, he was creating magic in her sterile kitchen. He'd somehow procured crayons and paper, and the kids were drawing pictures while they ate. The youngest boy, with dirt under his fingernails and hope in his eyes, held up a crayon drawing of a house with a garden. "This is where we'll live someday, Papa Miguel," he said, "with real beds and a refrigerator full of food." Miguel knelt down to the boy's level, his janitor's uniform wrinkled from a long day of work. "Tell me about this house, Carlos." "It has a big kitchen where Mama can cook, and a yard where Rosa can play, and—" Carlos paused, looking up at Miguel with absolute trust. "And you'll have your own room too, because you're family." Victoria felt something crack inside her chest. She'd never heard her name spoken with such reverence, such pure love, as these children spoke of this man who cleaned her floors every night. "Where is your mama tonight?" Miguel asked gently, helping Rosa color inside the lines of what appeared to be a rainbow. "She's working the night shift at the hospital," the oldest girl, maybe 10 years old, replied with the weariness of someone far older. "She won't be back until morning." "But it's okay, we have you." Miguel nodded, checking his watch. "I need to start working soon, but you know the rules. Stay quiet, stay together, and don't touch anything that doesn't belong to us," the children chanted in unison, clearly having heard this many times before. Victoria's mind reeled. Every night for 3 years, while she slept in her king-sized bed on the floor above, Miguel had been caring for these children in her kitchen that she barely used, in a penthouse that could easily house 20 people but held only her. She watched as Miguel pulled out his phone and showed the children something on the screen, a savings app. "Look," he whispered excitedly. "I saved another $40 this week. That brings us to," he calculated carefully, $8,322. "How much more do we need for the apartment?" Rosa asked, leaning against Miguel's arm. "Well, with first month's rent, last month's rent, and security deposit." Miguel's face showed the exhaustion of a man working multiple jobs. "We need about 4,000 more. But don't worry, Majos. I pick up extra shifts on weekends. And Mrs. Patterson said she might have more cleaning work for me." Carlos, the little boy with the drawing, looked up with concern beyond his years. "But Papa Miguel, you're already tired all the time. When do you sleep?" Miguel smiled, but Victoria could see the weariness etched in every line of his face. "Sleep is for when we have our home, Carlito. Right now, we work." The children had finished their small meal, and Miguel was already cleaning up, wiping down Victoria's counters with the same care he showed every night when she wasn't watching. He pulled out homework assignments from his bag. He was helping them with their studies too. "Okay, homework time while I work," he announced. "Rosa, you practice your letters. Carlos, work on those math problems we started yesterday. Maria, help your brother while I clean the upstairs." As Miguel gathered his cleaning supplies, Victoria realized she had a choice. She could retreat to her bedroom, pretend she'd seen nothing, and let this continue in secret. Or she could step forward and face the reality that her wealth existed alongside such need, such love, such sacrifice happening right under her roof. She thought about the merger she'd lost today, the millions that felt so important just hours ago. Then she looked at Miguel, dividing a single sandwich among 4 hungry children while saving every penny toward a dream that would take him years to achieve. Victoria Sterling, who had negotiated deals worth hundreds of millions, who had stared down corporate sharks and emerged victorious, took a shaky breath and stepped into the light. "Good evening, Miguel." The man froze, still holding his spray bottle, his face immediately filled with panic. The children looked up in fear, clearly expecting to be thrown out into the cold night. "Miss Sterling, I can explain." "Please don't call the police." "These children, they have nowhere else to go. And I know I shouldn't have here." Victoria held up her hand, surprised by the gentleness in her own voice. "Miguel, how long have they been coming here?" His shoulders sagged in defeat. 6 months. Since their mother started working nights to pay for her nursing school. "I know it's wrong. I know I could lose my job. But they were sleeping in the hospital waiting room, and it's not safe. And Miguel." Victoria's voice was softer than she'd heard it in years. "You're not in trouble." She looked at the 4 children huddled together, protecting each other instinctively, and saw herself 30 years ago hungry, scared, and desperately in need of someone to believe in her. "What's your mother's name?" she asked Rosa gently. "Isabella Santos," the little girl whispered. "She's going to be a nurse. She helps sick people get better." Victoria nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. She pulled out her phone and made a call that would change everything. "David, it's Victoria. I need you to prepare some documents tonight." "Yes, I know it's late." "I need a lease agreement for the penthouse on the 15th floor of the one that's been sitting empty. And I need employment paperwork for Isabella Santos. She's starting Monday as our new corporate wellness coordinator." Miguel stared at her in confusion while the children watched with wide eyes. Victoria hung up and knelt down to their level, her expensive suit creasing against the floor. She'd never noticed Miguel scrubbing clean night after night. Miguel, that apartment downstairs has 3 bedrooms, a full kitchen, and overlooks Central Park. The rent is $4,000 a month. She paused, watching hope and despair war across his weathered face. I'd like to offer it to your family for $500 a month, plus your continued work here. Your salary will also be increasing to cover utilities and groceries. The silence stretched for what felt like forever. Then Carlos whispered, "Is this real?" Victoria looked at Miguel, this man who had sacrificed everything for children who weren't even his biological family, and realized she'd been living in a house when she could have been creating a home. "It's real," she said, her voice thick with emotions she'd forgotten she could feel. "And Miguel, tomorrow, I'd like to meet Isabella and discuss her new position. Our employees need better wellness support, and I have a feeling she's exactly what we need." Miguel's eyes filled with tears as he pulled all 4 children into his arms. "Did you hear that, Mijos? We're going home." But as Victoria watched this beautiful family embrace, she realized something profound. Home wasn't a place you went to. Home was something you built, one act of kindness at a time. And for the first time in decades, she truly understood what it meant to come home. 6 months later, Victoria would often find herself in the 15th floor apartment, sharing dinner with the Santos family, learning Spanish from Rosa, helping Carlos with math, and discovering that the greatest merger of her life hadn't happened in a boardroom, it had happened in her kitchen, over peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. When she learned that success without compassion is just expensive loneliness. Sometimes the most important business deals are the ones that invest in human hearts. And sometimes, coming home without warning reveals that the most valuable treasure has been there all along, waiting to be acknowledged, waiting to be cherished, waiting to remind us that at the end of every day, what matters most isn't what we've accumulated, but whom we've lifted up along the way.